Hello and welcome to A View for You, a twice-monthly journal about people and events of interest in the San Francisco Bay Area. My name is Peter Camarda. I'll be your host tonight, and we're broadcasting to you live on the San Francisco Public Access Channel, Comcast Channel 76, AT&T Channel 99, and Astound Channel 30. Tonight, I'm very pleased to have with me Gail Mitchell, a local poet.
Hello.
Welcome. We're going to read a little bit from Gail's poems, and we have some slides as well of different places where she's appeared doing readings. Is that you in the middle there with the balloons?
I can't actually see that. I don't think that's me.
It's not you? Okay. But these are different locations where Gail has done readings, and so we'll be showing you those as we go along. So let me just ask you to begin with a little bit about your background. You're a San Francisco poet, right? You grew up here. Tell us a little bit about how you became a poet.
Well, I kind of think when you lose something, that spirit gives you something back.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother died in 1965 of an asthma attack. And I started writing shortly after that. And I think the only way I had to express the grief was through my writing. The early work is packed away, and I don't pull it out very often, but it was the only way to get through it, because in those days people didn't talk about death, and she died so suddenly with having an asthma attack. There was no time to say goodbye, so that I think the writing and just being able to let it out that way gave way to poetry.
I was noticing in reading some of your poems, there is a sense of loss in a lot of them, or a sense of change. I think we were talking earlier, is that something that comes up a lot for you in recent years?
Well, Bone Songs, the book, was based on 7 different deaths or 7 losses. And my grandpa died when I was 7. My mother died when I was 14. At 28, I lost my father. He had an aneurysm. So I started really looking at it, what that was, how that changed me, how I related. So loss is really prevalent. And then in the 80s, I lost one of my closest friends to AIDS, and then in 97, I lost the other one. So in 96, 97, 94, my grandmother died. So yes, loss plays heavily. I just try not to let it get me down. I'm not a blues singer, I'm a poet. So.
And there is also kind of a sense of San Francisco itself changing as well, that it's sort of another thing that has escaped us or changed for us over time.
There's a poem that you didn't pick called Sightings of Angels, and it's all about the Fillmore and growing up, and it kind of has the Fillmore in it. It has going to concerts, going to see Janis and Santana, and maybe I'll start off with that one.
Okay, that sounds good.
Really,
and so we'll go back and forth between you reading and looking at some of the slides.
Okay.
All right, tell us the title and we'll begin.
It's called Sightings of Angels. There have been sightings of angels, often glimpsed in the half-dark, rescuing some soul when he has cashed in all his chips, and is just blowing that one note that threatens to break into something special. There are moments when Michael the archangel has been seen, wings back, tapping his fingers, lingering over Beale Street, lingering over someone with a clarinet who's playing dragon tunes. And he's there to urge him on, to encourage him to the edge and on into ecstasy, lost in the glory of just blowing because it feels so damn good. And every Christmas, and often in the fall, when it would get cold and crisp outside, Mahalia Jackson could be heard closing up the stud down on Folsom, singing and shouting hallelujah, singing and shouting, and those boys, soon to be men, heard it, and felt it as last call was heard one more time. Angels have been seen in midday in the Fillmore, when it was all black. No, it hadn't stopped being colored yet. Men with their straw hats and fine tan leather shoes and suits so crisp they almost shouted at you. The creases were that sharp. There was an angel down there, Jack. Sometimes she'd be coming out the beauty parlor, hair all done up in a press and curl, ready for Saturday night. Or maybe just going to the bowling alley where she'd meet the girls hanging out for the evening. And many is the night that some poor fool spent his rent money at the Club Long Island down on 3rd Street. Their angels have often been seen in broad daylight wearing red lipstick, red nails, and dressed to the nines. Girl knew she was looking good. Billy used to sing right over there on Fillmore at the Plantation Club, and sometimes she could make you break down. There were clubs up and down the street, house parties with chili and crackers and homebrew, dip and potato chips, and a little girl who would watch the grown-ups get silly. They'd throw a nickel, a dime, or a quarter her way, and a quarter in those days was some big money. It could buy you 5 candy bars, or a Coke and a bag of chips. These angel sightings got less and less, but sometime, when the music was, well, you know, it could take you higher than weed, higher than booze, higher than, well, the music could take you there. There'd be Carlos Santana, head back, eyes closed, just playing the hell out of that guitar, and you'd look up and there'd be tears. Or Janice would shout, baby, 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 welcome back home. Or Jimmy would play your spine as Voodoo Child cooked. Then there was the day Harvey Milk and Moscone got shot. So many of us took to the streets that night. We marched from Castro Street to City Hall. Joan Baez sang, and I could swear, over my shoulder, away to the rear, a bit of wing. Just the other day I was listening to Minnie Riperton, and I felt a tear escape down my cheek as I reached up to wipe it away. If not 6 feet, at the foot of the dining room table, an angel seemed to just blur on the edge of my vision. As my head hit the pillow, just before I said good night to my children, I heard a voice as plain as day. It must have been something or someone reminding me to pray.
That's lovely. So, you talked a little bit about the Fillmore in that home. You've lived in several different neighborhoods in San Francisco, haven't you?
Yeah, my parents started out, my grandmother lived on Lily Street when I was born, which is like one of those little tiny side streets. It's really hard to explain what Lily Street is, but it's a little tiny side street. And I recently went back to the house just to show my daughter where my grandmother started, or, where I remember her starting. And then from there, my father was in Korea when I was born, and so we lived in the projects over on Sutter. And when my young sister was born, my family moved to Ocean View, and that was the library where I did a reading to commemorate the new library coming in.
Yeah, we just had some photos of that.
Because it used to be on Broad Street, and then they moved it to Randolph Street. And then we lived on Broad Street, and our grandmother lived right around the corner on Farallon's, bordered by Plymouth and Capitol. And I went to Sheridan School, and then I went to St. Michael's, which doesn't exist anymore. And when I left home, I, lured by the Haight-Ashbury, got as close as I could get, and I lived at Oak and Divisadero, above the Theater for Madmen Only. And we were there for a while, and after that, we had a commune, and we moved throughout the city. But we started at Oak and Divis, and then went to the Mission, and then ended up on Central and between Hayes and Fell. And then when my husband and I got together, we lived in the Haight on Page and Schrader. And now we've been on Oak Street for, our youngest daughter's 29.
Wow.
We were back on Oak Street for the, and we've been on Oak Street for 29 years.
So the city is really in your blood.
deeply.
And then you also work on Haight Street in the
we have a
stained glass shop.
Yeah, we've been there since '73. Since Steve and I have been together since '74. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, read us another one then.
All right. I will read Jazz Valentine. That was one that you picked.
That one I liked a lot. Yeah.
Let's see. I actually. Maybe it's right here.
Okay.
This is one I wrote for my husband.
Ah.
And at reading, sometimes it would make him blush. I am so full of you that I'm undulating, riding waves that were meant only to sail the big ships across the seas. I am so full of you that a fire rises in my belly and moves up my spine, tickling my earlobes. I've rolled in your private thunder, tasted nectar from your tongue. Out of your beard I've picked shells and seaweed. I've combed your hair into the tiniest droplets that have formed the largest wave, and it covers me, moves me in ways I cannot describe. I am so doggone full of you that I smell your smell in my primal places, and when I take in breath it is mixed with salt air. Excuse me. You are the sailor who has played 1,000 sad harmonies on your midnight jazz saxophone, and I've stood on distant shores licking the notes one at a time out of the air, always knowing you were playing solitary words for my heart to own. I am so full of you that my feet have become planted in the earth and taken root, and these roots extend maybe to China or Israel. I am so full of your sweet, salty treasures that my teeth have turned to pearls and my hair has lost its kink and been electrified, sending out transmissions all across the world to let you know that I know just how sweet it is. I am so full of you that I understand the Mona Lisa's smile, and I've tapped into where Venus de Milo's arms are buried, and after all that time, too. In my bath, the water takes on a new meaning, and the candlelight takes me back to the curve of your arm, wrapping me, warming me, wielding me so close to that moment when I realized I was so full of you that I truly began to understand jazz. And I could bebop my way all the way back to that first time I ever drowned in your eyes, thinking I was looking out at the sea. I am so full of you that my blood sings notes that whisper at an up-tempo and then leaves me lying languid, trying to remember the A-train refrain. And I sing the words to fever quicker than they have ever been sung. And then, while I strain to hear the last notes tumbling into the fire, I remember jasmine-scented candles at my bedside, pieces of forever harmonies tucked into my pillow, and my heart has opened and stained the walls, the windows, and the mirror with my joy. And then the waves come, and I am so full of you that I break apart into 1,000 colored lights and sparkle on into eternity.
That's a lucky husband.
Thank you.
The imagery there is just so lovely. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Well, let's do another one. Let's keep going. We don't have that much time, so we'll just keep plugging through.
I've got another one that you picked, Witness.